lead to your results. Therefore, just as is done with a personal computer, by changing your programming, you take the first essential step to changing your results. So how are we conditioned? We are conditioned in three primary ways. Life in every arena of including money. Verbal programming. What did you hear when you were young? Modeling. What did you see when you were young? Incidents. What did you experience when you were young? Specific of three, the two are conditioning understand. So let's go over each of them. In part 2 of this book, you recondition will yourself for wealth and success. Aspects important, learn how to. The first, influence verbal programming. Let's verbal programming. What did you hear about money, wealth, and rich people when you were growing up? Did you ever hear phrases like money is the root of all evil? Save your money for a rainy day. Rich people are greedy. Rich people are criminals. Filthy rich. You have to work hard to make money. Money doesn't grow on trees. You can't be rich and spiritual. Money doesn't buy happiness. Money talks. The rich get richer and the poor get poorer. That's not for people like us. Not everyone can be rich. There's never enough. And the infamous, we can't afford it. Begin with, in my household, every time I asked my father for any money, I'd hear him scream, "What am I made of? Money." Jokingly, I'd respond, "I wish. I'll take an arm, a hand, even a finger." He never laughed once. The statements you heard about money when you were young remain in your subconscious mind as part of the blueprint that is running your financial life. Here's the rub. All verbal conditioning is extremely powerful. For example, when my son Jesse was 3 years old, he ran over to me and excitedly said, "Daddy, let's go see the Ninja Turtle movie. It's playing near us." For the life of me, I couldn't figure out how this toddler could already be a master of geography. A couple of hours later, I got my answer in the Form commercial, a TV advertising the movie, which had at the end the usual tagline, "Now playing at a theater near you." Of another example of the power of verbal conditioning came at the expense of one of our Millionaire Mind seminar participants. Stephen didn't have a problem earning money. His challenge was keeping it. At the time Stephen came to the Earning Over course, he was $800,000 a year and had been doing so for the past 9 years. Yet he's scraping by. But somehow he managed to spend his money, lend it, or lose it all by making poor investment decisions. Whatever the reason, his net worth was exactly zero. Still barely, Stephen shared with us that when he was growing up, his mom always used to say, "Rich people are greedy. They make their money off the sweat of the poor. You should have just enough to get by. After that, you're a pig." It doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure out what was going on inside subconscious mind. No wonder he was broke. He was verbally conditioned by his mother to believe that rich people, Stevens, are greedy. Therefore, his mind linked up rich with greedy, which of course is bad, since he didn't want subconsciously he to be bad, couldn't be rich. Stephen loved his mum and didn't want her to disapprove of him. Obviously, based on her beliefs, if he were to get rich, she wouldn't approve. Therefore, the only thing for him to do was to get rid of any extra money beyond just getting by. Otherwise, he'd be a pig. Now, you would think that in choosing between being rich and being approved of by mum or anyone else for that matter, most people would take being rich. Not a chance. The mind just doesn't work that way. Sure, riches would seem to be the logical choice. But when the subconscious mind must choose between deeply rooted emotions and logic, emotions will almost always win. Wealth principle. When the subconscious mind must choose between deeply rooted emotions and logic, emotions will almost always win. Let's get back to our story. In less than 10 minutes at the course, using some extremely effective experiential techniques, Stephen's money changed blueprint dramatically. In only 2 years, he went from being broke to becoming a millionaire. At the course, Stephen began to understand that these non-supportive beliefs were his mum's, based on her past programming, and not his. We then took it a step further and helped him to create a strategy, lose his whereby he wouldn't mother's approval if he got rich. It was simple. Loved Hawaii. So Stephen invested in a beachfront, his mum condo on Maui. He sends her there in the entire winter. She's heaven, and so is he. First, she now loves everyone how generous he is. Second, he doesn't have to deal with her for 6 months of the year. Brilliant. That he's rich, and in my own life, after a slow start, I began doing well in business, but never seemed to make money with my stocks. In becoming aware of my money blueprint, I recalled that when I was young, each day after work, my dad would sit down at the newspaper, check the stock pages, slam his fist on the table and shout, "Those stinking stocks." He then, at the dinner table with, spent the next half hour ranting about how stupid the whole system is and how you have a better chance of making money playing the slot machines in Las Vegas. Now that you understand the power of verbal conditioning, can you see that it's no wonder I couldn't make any money in the literally stock market? Programmed to fail, programmed to unconsciously pick the wrong stock at the wrong price at the wrong time. Why? To subconsciously validate my money blueprint that said, stocks stink. All I can say is, by digging out this massive toxic weed from my inner financial garden, I began getting inundated with more fruits. Virtually, I reconditioned myself. The stocks I chose began to boom, and I've continued to have amazing success in the stock market ever since. It seems incredibly strange, but when you really understand how money blueprint works, it makes perfect sense. Subconscious again, conditioning your thinking. Your thinking determines your decisions, and your decisions determine your actions, which eventually your outcomes. The after day your determine. There are 4 key elements of change, each of which is essential in financial reprogramming blueprint. They are simple but profoundly powerful. The first element of change is change your awareness. Use something unless you know exists. The second element of change is understanding. By understanding thinking, where your way of originates, you can recognize that it has to come from outside you. The third element of change is disassociation. Once you realize this way of thinking isn't you, you can separate yourself from it and choose in the present whether to keep it or let it go, based on who you are today and where you want to be tomorrow. You can observe this way of thinking and see it for what it is, a file of information that was stored in your mind a long, long time ago and may not hold any truth or value for you anymore. The fourth element of change is reconditioning. We will begin this process in part 2 of this book, where we will introduce you to the mental files that generate wealth. Should you want to take this a step further, I invite you to attend the Millionaire Mind Intensive Seminar, where you will be led through a series of powerful experiential techniques that will rewire your subconscious on a cellular and level, retraining your permanent mind to respond supportively in terms of money and success. The elements of frequency and ongoing support are also important for lasting change to occur. So I've got another gift to help you. If you to go millionairemindbook.com and click on free book bonuses, you can subscribe to the Millionaire Mind Thought of the Week. Every 7 days you will receive a profound lesson that can assist your success. Meanwhile, let's go back to our discussion on verbal conditioning and the steps you can take now to your Money Begin blueprint. Revising. Steps for change. Verbal programming awareness. Write down all the statements you heard about money, wealth, and rich people when you were young. Understanding. Write down how you believe these statements have affected your financial life so far. Disassociation. Can you see that these thoughts represent only what you learned and are not part of your anatomy and not who you are? Can you see that you have a choice in the present moment to be different? Declaration. Place your hand over your heart and say, what I heard about money isn't necessarily true. I choose to adopt new ways of thinking that support my happiness and success. Touch your head and say, I have a millionaire mind. The second influence modeling are the conditioned is called modeling. What were your parents or guardians like in the arena of money when you were growing up? Did one or both of them manage their money well, or did they mismanage it? Were they spenders or savers? Were they shrewd investors, or were they non-investors? Were they risk takers or conservative? Was money consistently there, or was the flow more sporadic? Did money come easily in your family, or was it always a struggle? Was money a source of joy in your household, or the cause of bitter arguments? Second way we information important. You've probably heard, why is this the saying, monkey see, monkey do? Well, humans aren't far behind. Just about as kids, we everything from modeling. Learn. Although most of us would hate to admit it, there's more than a grain of truth in the old saying, the apple doesn't fall too far from the tree. This reminds me of the story about a woman who prepares a ham for dinner by cutting off both ends. Her bewildered husband asks why she cuts off the ends as she replies, "That's how my mom cooked it." Well, it just so happened that her mom was coming for dinner that night, so they asked her why she cut off the ends of the ham. Mom replies, "That's how my mom cooked it." So they decide to call Grandma on the phone and ask why she cut off the ends of the ham. Her answer? Because my pan was too small. That, generally speaking, we tend to be identical to one or a combination of our parents in the arena of money. The point, for example, my dad was an entrepreneur. He was in the home building, built to anywhere 100 homes per project. Each project took a huge amount of capital investment. My dad would have to put up everything we had and borrow heavily from the bank until the homes were sold. And the business, he from a dozen cash came through. Consequently, at the beginning of each project, we had no money and were in debt up to our eyeballs. As you can imagine, during this period, my dad was not in the best of moods, nor was generosity his strong suit. If I asked him for anything that cost even a penny, his standard reply after the usual, "What am I, made of money?" was, "Are you crazy?" Of course, I wouldn't get a dime, but what I would get was that, "Don't even think of asking again, Claire." I'm sure you know the one. This scenario would last for about a year or two until the homes were finally sold. Then we'd be rolling in dough. All of a sudden, my dad was a different person. He'd be happy, kind, and extremely generous. He'd come over and ask me if I needed a few bucks. I felt like giving him his glare back, but I wasn't that stupid, so I just said, "Sure, Dad, thanks," and rolled my eyes. That life was good. Until dreaded day when he'd come home and announce, "I found a good piece of land. We're going to build, remember, I distinctly again," saying, "Great, Dad, good luck," as my heart sank, knowing the struggle that was about to unfold again. This pattern lasted from the time I could remember, when I was about 6, until the age of 21, when I moved out of my parents' house for good. Then it stopped, or so I thought. At 21 years of age, I finished school and became, you guessed it, a builder. I then went on to several other types of project-based businesses. For some strange reason, I'd make a small fortune, but just a short time later, I'd be broke. I'd get into another business and believe I was on top of the world again, only to hit bottom a year later. This up and down pattern went on for nearly 10 years before I realized that maybe the problem wasn't the type of business I was choosing. The partners choosing, the employees I had, the state of the economy, or my decision to take time off and relax when things were going well. I finally recognized that maybe, just maybe, I was unconsciously reliving income, my dad's up and down pattern. All I can say is, thank goodness I learned what you're learning into this book, recondition myself out of that yo into having a yo model and income. Consistently today, the urge to change when things are going well and to sabotage myself in the process still comes up. But now there's another file in my mind that observes this and was able growing feeling and says, "Thank you for sharing. Now let's get refocused and back to work." Another example comes from one of my seminars in Orlando, Florida. As usual, people were filing up to the stage one by one to get an autograph and say hello or thank you or whatever. I'll never forget one older gentleman because he came up sobbing. He could barely catch his breath and kept wiping his tears with his sleeve. I asked him what was wrong. He said, "I'm 63 years old and I've been reading books to seminars since they were invented. I've seen every speaker and tried everything they taught. I've tried and going stocks, real estate, and been in over a dozen different businesses. I went back to university and got an MBA. I've got more knowledge than 10 average men, yet I've never made it financially. I'd always get a good start but end up empty-handed. And in all those years, I never knew why. I thought I must just be plain old stupid. Until today. Finally, after listening to you and doing the processes, it all makes sense. There's nothing wrong with me. I just had my dad's money blueprint stuck in my head, and that's been my nemesis. My dad, the went depression era. Every day he would try getting jobs or selling things, and through the heart of come home empty-handed. I wish I would have understood modeling and money patterns 40 years ago. What a waste of time all that learning and knowledge has been. He began to cry even harder. I replied, "No way is your knowledge a waste of time. It has just been latent, waiting in a mind bank, waiting for the opportunity that you've come out. Now formulated a success blueprint. Everything you've ever learned will become usable, and you will skyrocket to success." For most of us, when we hear the truth, we know it. He started to lighten up and began breathing deeply again. Then a big grin came across his face. He gave me the biggest hug and said, "Thank you, thank you, thank you." Last I heard from him, everything was booming. He has accumulated more wealth in the last 18 months than in the past 18 years combined. I love it. Again, you can have all the knowledge and skills in the world, but if your blueprint isn't set for success, you're financially doomed. Seminar participants whose parents were involved in World War II or who lived through the Depression. These people are often in shock when they realize how much their parents' experiences have influenced their. We often get beliefs and habits around money. Some spend like crazy because you could easily lose all your money, so you might as well enjoy it while you can. Others go the opposite route. They hoard their money and save for a rainy day. A word of wisdom. Saving for a rainy day might sound like a good idea, but it can create big problems. One of the principles we teach in another of our courses is the power of intention. If you are saving your money for a rainy day, what are you going to get? Rainy days. Stop doing that. Instead of saving for a rainy day, focus on saving for a joyous day, or for the day you win your financial freedom. Then, by virtue of the law of intention, that's exactly what you will get. Earlier we said that most of us tend to be identical to one or both parents in the arena of money, but there's also the flip side of the coin. Some of us end up being exactly the opposite of one or both parents. Why would that happen? Do the words anger and rebellion ring a bell? In short, it just depends on how ticked off you were at them. Unfortunately, as little kids we can't say to our parents, "Mum and Dad, have a seat. I'd like to discuss something with you. I'm not fond of the way you're managing your money, or for that matter, your lives. And therefore, when I become an adult, I'll be doing things quite differently. I hope you understand. Good night now and pleasant dreams." No, it doesn't go quite that way. Instead, when our buttons are pushed, we generally freak out. And what comes out sounds more like, "I hate you. I'll never be like you. When I grow up, I'm going to be rich. Then I'll get whatever I want, whether you like it or not." Then we run to our bedroom, slam the door, and start pounding our pillow or whatever else is at hand to vent our frustration. Many people who come from poor families become angry and rebellious about it. Often they either go out and get rich or at least have the motivation to do so. But there's one little hiccup, which is actually a big burp. Whether such people get rich or work their buns off trying to become successful, they are not usually happy. Why? Because the root of their wealth or motivation for money is anger and resentment. Consequently, money and anger become linked in their minds, and the more money such individuals have or strive for, the angrier they get. Eventually, the higher self says, "I'm tired of being angry and stressed out. I just want to be peaceful and happy." So they ask the same mind that created the link what to do about this situation, to which their mind answers, "If you want to get rid of your anger, you're going to have to get rid of your do." They money. So they subconsciously get rid of money. They They overspend or make a poor investment decision or get a financially disastrous divorce, or they sabotage their success in some other way. But no matter, because now these folks are happy. Right? Wrong. Things are even worse because now they're not just angry, they're broke and angry. They got rid of the wrong thing. They got rid of the money instead of the anger, the fruit instead of the root. Meanwhile, the real issue is, and always was, the anger between them and their parents. And until that anger is resolved, they will never be truly happy or peaceful, regardless of how much money they have or don't have. The reason or motivation you have for making money or creating success is vital. If your motivation for acquiring money or success comes from a non-supportive root such as fear, anger, or the need to prove yourself, your money will never bring you happiness. Wealth principle. If your motivation for acquiring money or success comes from a non-supportive root such as fear, anger, or the need to prove yourself, your money will never bring you happiness. Why? Because you can't solve any of these issues with money. Take fear, for instance. During my seminars, I ask the audience, how many of you would cite fear as your primary motivation for success? Not many people put up their hand. However, then I ask, how many of you would cite security as one of your main motivators for success? Almost everyone puts up his or her hand. But get this, security and fear are both motivated by the same thing. Seeking security comes from insecurity, which is based in fear. So will more money dissolve the fear? You wish. But the answer is absolutely not. Why? Because the money problem, fear is. What's even worse is that fear is not just a problem, it's a habit. Therefore, making more money will only change the kind of, it's not. When we were broke, we were most likely afraid we'd never make it or never have enough. Once we make it, however, our fear usually changes to, what if I lose what I've made? Or everyone's going to want what I have, or I'm going to get creamed in taxes. In short, until we get to the root of this issue and dissolve the fear, no amount of money will help. Of course, given a choice, most of us would rather worry about having money and losing it than not having money at all. But neither are overly enlightened ways to live. As with those of us driven by fear, many people are motivated to achieve financial success to prove they are good enough. We'll cover this challenge in detail in part 2 of this book, but for now, just realize that no amount of money can ever make you good enough. Money can't make you something you already are. Again, as with fear, to prove the always having yourself issue becomes your habitual way of living. You don't even recognize it's running you. You call yourself a high achiever, a hard driver, determined, and all traits are fine. The only these question is why? What is the root engine that drives all this? For people who are driven to prove they are good enough, no amount of money can ease the pain of that inner wound that makes everything and everyone in their life.
Hello, mommy.
Life not enough. No amount of money, or anything else for that matter, will ever be enough for people who feel enough are they themselves. It's all about you. Again, remember, inner world, your reflects your outer world. If you believe you are not enough, you will validate that belief and create the reality that you don't have enough. On the other hand, if you believe you are plenty, you will validate that belief of create abundance. Why? Because plenty will be your root, which will then become your natural way of being. Not good and plenty. By unlinking your money motivation from anger, fear, and the need to prove yourself, you can install new links for earning your money purpose through contribution and joy. That way, you'll never have to get rid of your money to be happy. Being a rebel, or the opposite of, is not always your parents' problem. To the contrary, if you were a rebel, often the case with second-born children, and your folks had poor money habits, it's probably a good thing that you are their opposite. On the other hand, if your parents were successful and you're rebelling against them, you could be in for serious financial difficulties. Either way, what's important is to recognize how your way of being relates to one or both of your parents in the arena of money. Steps for change, modeling awareness. Consider the ways of being and habits each of your parents had around money and wealth. Write down how you may be identical or opposite to either of them. Understanding the effect. Write down this modeling has had on your financial life.
Pure water, pure crystal, but it's at a depth. Listen to me. You know what I found out again, Rehoboth? I found out that there are some places that don't.
Consider the ways an operating room nurse attended Millionaire Mind Intensive seminar. Josie had an excellent income, but somehow she always spent all of her money. When we dug a little deeper, she revealed that when she was 11 years old, she remembers being at a Chinese restaurant with her parents and her sister. Her mum and dad were having yet another bitter argument about money. Her dad was standing slamming his fist on the table. She remembers him turning red, then blue, then falling to the floor from a heart attack. She was on the swim team at school and had CPR training, which she administered but to no avail. Her father died in her arms, up, screaming. And so, from that day forth, Josie's mind linked money with pain. It's no wonder then that as an adult she subconsciously got rid of all of her money in an effort to get rid of her pain. It's also interesting to note that she became a nurse. Why? Is it possible that she was still trying to save her dad? At the course, we helped Josie identify her old money blueprint and revise it. Today, she's well on her way to becoming financially free, and she's also not a nurse anymore. Not that she didn't enjoy her job. It's just that she was in the nursing profession for the wrong financial reason. She's now a planner, still helping people, but this time one-on-one. Still helping people, but this time one-on-one. Still helping people, but this time one-on-one. understand how their past programming runs every aspect of their financial lives. Let me give you another example of a specific incident, one that's closer to home. When my wife was 8 years old, she would hear the clanging bells of the ice cream truck coming down the street. She would run to her mom and ask for a quarter. Her mom would reply, "Sorry, dear, I don't have any money. Go ask Dad. Dad's got all the money." My wife would then go ask her dad. He'd give her a quarter. She'd go get her ice cream cone, and she was a happy camper. Week after week, the same incident would repeat itself. So learn about what did my wife money? First, that men have all the money. So once we got married, what do you think she expected of me? That's right, money. And I'll tell you what, she wasn't asking for quarters anymore. Somehow she'd graduated. Second, she learned that women don't have money. If her mum, the deity, didn't have money, obviously this is the way she should be. To validate that way of being, she would subconsciously get rid of all her money. She was quite precise about it too. If you gave her $100, she'd spend $100. If you gave her $200, she'd spend $200. If you gave her $500, she'd spend $500. And if you gave her $1,000, she'd spend $1,000. Then she took one of my courses and learned all about the art of leverage. I gave her $2,000. She spent $10,000. I tried to explain, "No, honey, leverage means we're the ones who are supposed to get the $10,000, not spend it." Somehow, it just wasn't sinking in. The only thing we ever thought about was money. It almost cost us our marriage. What we didn't know at the time was that the meanings each of us attributed to money were radically different. To my wife, money meant immediate pleasure, as in enjoying her ice cream. I, on the other hand, grew up with the belief that money was meant to be accumulated as the means to create freedom, your destiny, wealth, and forgave myself for past mistakes, truly believing that I deserved to be wealthy. And now I'm actually having fun managing my own money. I am financially free and know I always will be because I have a millionaire mind. Thank you, Harv. Thank you. Does all this work? Let me put it this way. Miracles in my life I've witnessed. 1, the birth of my daughter. 2, the birth of my son. 3, my wife and I not fighting about money anymore. Statistics show that the number relationship one cause of all breakups is money. The biggest reason behind the fights people have about money is not the money itself. They're but blueprints. It doesn't matter how much money you have or don't have. If your blueprint doesn't match that of the person you're dealing with, you'll have a major challenge. This goes for married family couples, dating couples, relationships, and even business to associates. The mismatch of the key is comprehend that you are dealing with blueprints, not money. Once you recognize a person's money blueprint, you can deal with your partner in a way that works for both of you. You can begin by becoming aware that your partner's money files are probably not the same as yours. Instead of getting upset, choose understanding. Do your best to find out what's important to your partner in the arena of money and identify his or her motivations and fears. In this way, you'll be dealing with the roots instead of the fruits and have a good shot of making it work. Otherwise, no way, Jose. Important things you will learn, should you. What most decide to attend the Millionaire Mind Intensive seminar is how to recognize your partner's money blueprint, as well as how to create a brand new blueprint between both of you that helps you as partners get what you really want. It is truly a blessing to be able to do this, as it alleviates one of the biggest causes of pain for most people. Steps for change, specific incidents. Here's an exercise you can do with your partner. Sit down and discuss the history. Each of you brings thoughts about money, what you heard when you were young, what was modeled in your family, and any emotional incidents that occurred. Also, find out what money really means to your partner. Is it pleasure or freedom or security or status? This will assist you in identifying each other's current money blueprint and may help you discover why you might be disagreeing in this arena. Next, discuss what you want today, not as individuals, but as a partnership. Decide and agree upon your general goals and attitudes with regard to money and success. Then create a list of these attitudes and actions you both agree to live by and write them down. Post them on the wall. And if ever there's an Issue gently, very gently. Remind each other what you decided together when you were both objective, unemotional, and outside the grip of your old money blueprints. Awareness. Consider a specific emotional incident you around money experienced when you were young. Understanding. Write down how this incident may have affected your current financial life. Disassociation. Can you see this way of being is only what you learned and isn't you? Can you see you have a choice in the present moment to be different? Declaration. Place your hand on your heart and say, my money, non-supportive experiences from the past and create a new and rich future. Touch your head and say, I release, I have a millionaire mind. So what is your money blueprint set for? Now it's time to answer the million-dollar question. What is your current money and success blueprint? And what result is it subconsciously moving you toward? Are you set for success, mediocrity, failure? Are you or programmed for struggle or for ease around money? Are you set for working hard for your money or working in balance? Financial, are you conditioned for having earned inconsistent income? You know the scoop. First you have it, then you don't, then you have it, then you don't. It always appears as though these drastic for the fluctuations come from the outside income or I got a great paying job, but then the company folded. Then I started my own business and things were booming, but the market dried up. My next business was doing super. Then my partner left, etc. Don't be fooled. This is your blueprint at work. Are you set for having a high income, a moderate income, or a low income? Did you know there are actual dollar amounts for which many of us are programmed? Are you set for earning $20,000 to $30,000 to the $100,000? $60,000, $75,000, $150,000 to $200,000, $250,000 a year or more? A year? $40,000 a few years ago, I had an unusually well-dressed gentleman in the audience during one of my 2-hour evening seminars. When the seminar was complete, he came over and asked if I thought the 3-day millionaire mind course for him anything could do, considering he was already earning $500,000 a year. I asked him how that kind of long he'd earned money. He responded, consistently for about 7 years now. That was all I needed to hear. I asked him why he wasn't earning $2 million a year. I told him that the program was for people who want to reach their full financial potential and asked him to consider why he was stuck at $500,000. He decided to come to the program. I got an email from him a year later that said, the program was incredible, but I made a mistake. I only reset my money blueprint to earn the $2 million a year as we discussed. I'm already there. So I'm attending the course again to reset it for earning $10 million a year. The point I want to make is that the actual amounts don't matter. What matters is whether you are financial reaching potential. I know many of you might be asking, why on earth would anyone need that kind of money? First, that very question is your full not overly supportive to your wealth, and is a short. Or sign you'll want to blueprint. Revise this. Second, gentleman wanted to earn massive amounts of money was to support his work as a huge donor to a charity that assists AIDS victims in Africa. So much for the belief that rich people are greedy. Your money. The main reason you program for saving money or for spending money? Are you programmed for managing your money well or mismanaging it? Let's go on. Ala, are you set for picking winning investments or picking losers? You might wonder, how could whether or not I make money in the stock market or in real estate be part of my blueprint? Simple. Who picks the stock or the property? You do. Who picks when you buy it? You do. Who picks when you sell it? I guess you've got you do. Something to do with the equation. I have an acquaintance in San Diego named Larry. Larry is a magnet when it comes to making money. He definitely has a high-income blueprint. But he has the kiss of death when it comes to investing his money. Whatever he buys drops like a rock. Would you believe his dad had the exact same problem? Duh. I keep in close touch with Larry so I can ask him for investment advice. It is always perfect. Perfectly wrong. Whatever Larry suggests, I go the other way. I love Larry. On the other hand, notice how other people You've been faithful, Lord. Seem to have what we termed earlier the Midas touch. Everything they get involved with turns to gold. Both the Midas touch. And the kiss of death syndromes are the nothing manifestations of money blueprints. Your money blueprint will determine even your financial personal life. If you are a woman whose money blueprint is set for low, chances are you will attract a man who is also set for low, so you can stay in your financial comfort more than once again life and zone and validate your blueprint. If you are a man who is set for low, chances are you will attract a woman who is a spender and gets rid of all your money so you can, in your financial comfort stay zone, and validate your blueprint. Most people believe the success of is primarily their business dependent on their business skills and knowledge, or at least their timing of the marketplace. I hate to be the one to break it to you, but that's la la land, which is another way of saying not a chance. How well your business does is a result of your money blueprint. You will always validate your blueprint if you have a blueprint that is set for earning $100,000 a year. That's exactly how well the business will do, enough to earn you about $100,000 a year. If you are a salesperson and your blueprint is set for earning $50,000 a year, and somehow you make a huge sale that makes you $90,000 that year, either the sale will cancel, or if you do end up with $90,000, get ready for a crummy year to follow to make up for it and bring you back $90,000. Get ready for a crummy year to follow to make up for it and bring to the level of your financial blueprint. On the other hand, if you're set for earning $50,000 and you've been in a slump for a couple of years, don't worry. You'll get it all back. You have to. It's subconscious law of the mind and money. Someone in this position would probably walk across the street, get hit by a bus, and end up with exactly $50,000 a year in insurance. It's simple. One way or another, if you're set for $50,000 a year, eventually, that's what you'll get. So again, how can you tell what your money blueprint is set for? One of the most obvious ways is to look at your results. Look at your bank account. Look at your income. Look at your net worth. Look at your success with investments. Look at your business success. Look at whether you're a spender or a saver. Look at whether you manage money well. Look at how consistent or inconsistent you are. Look at how hard you work for your money. Look at your relationships that involve money. Is money a struggle, or does it come to you easily? Do you own a business, or do you have a job? Do you stick with one business or job for a long time, or do you jump around a lot? A thermostat. If the temperature in the 72 degrees, room chances are good that the thermostat is set for 72 degrees. Now here's where it gets interesting. Is it possible that because the window is open and it is cold outside, your blueprint are good that the thermostat is set for 72 degrees? Now here's where it gets interesting. Is it possible that because the window is open and it is cold outside, your blueprint is temperature in the room can drop to 65 degrees? Of course. But what will eventually happen? The thermostat will kick in and bring the temperature back to 72. Also, is it possible that because the window is open and it's hot outside, the temperature in the room can go up to 77 degrees? It could, but what will sure eventually happen? The thermostat will kick the temperature back to 72. In and bring, the only way to permanently change the temperature in the room is to reset the thermostat. In the same way, the only way to change level of financial success, to reset your permanently, is financial known as your money blueprint. Thermostat, otherwise wealth principle. The only way to permanently change the temperature in the room is to reset the thermostat. In the same way, the only way to change your level of financial success permanently is to reset your financial thermostat. Try anything and everything else you want. You can develop in business, in marketing, in sales, in negotiations, and in management. You can become an expert in real estate or the stock market. All of these are tremendous tools, but in the end, without an inner toolbox that is big enough and strong enough for you to create and hold on to large amounts of money, all the tools in the world will be useless to you. You can your knowledge, simple arithmetic. Your income can grow only to the extent that you do. Once again, it's fortunately or unfortunately, your personal money and success blueprint will tend to stay with you for the rest of your life, unless you identify and change it. And that is exactly what we will continue to do in part 2 of this book, and do even further with you at the Millionaire Mind Intensive Seminar. Remember that the first element of all change is awareness. Watch conscious, become yourself, observe your thoughts, your fears, your beliefs, your habits, your actions, and even your inactions. Put yourself under a microscope, study yourself. Most of us believe that we live our lives based on choice, not usually. Even really enlightened, we might make just a few choices during the average day, reflect our awareness of that ourselves in the present moment. But for the most part, we're like robots, running on automatic, ruled by our past conditioning and old habits. That's where consciousness comes observing your thoughts and actions so that you can live from true choice in the present moment, rather than being run by programming from the past. If we're in consciousness, wealth principle, consciousness is observing your thoughts and actions so that you can live from true choice in the present moment, rather than being run by programming from the past. By achieving consciousness, we can live from who we are today, rather than who we were yesterday. Respond inappropriately to 2 situations, tapping the full range and potential of our talents, skills, and inappropriately reacting to events driven by the fears and insecurities of the past. This way, we can once you are conscious, you can see your programming for what recording of simply AI, and received information you believed in the past when you were too young to know any better. You can see that this conditioning is not who you are, but who you learn to be. You can see that you are not the is recording, but the recorder. You are not the content in the glass, but the glass itself. You are not the software, but the hardware. Yes, genetics may play a role, and yes, spiritual aspects may come into play, but much of what shapes who you are comes from other people's beliefs and information. As I suggested earlier, beliefs are not necessarily true or false or right or wrong, but their validity. Beliefs are opinions that are passed around and then down, from generation to you. Knowing this, you can consciously choose to release any belief or way of being that is not regardless of supportive to your wealth, and you can replace it with one that is. In our courses, we teach that no thought lives in your head rent-free. Each thought you have will either be an investment or a cost. It toward will either move you happiness and success or away from it. It will either empower you or disempower you. That's why it is your imperative thoughts and beliefs wisely. You choose, realize that your thoughts and beliefs aren't who you are, and they are not necessarily attached to you. As precious as you believe them to be, they have no more importance and meaning than you give them. Nothing has meaning except for the meaning you give it. Recall how at the beginning of this book I suggested you don't believe a word I say? Well, if you really want to take off in your life, don't believe a word you say. And if instant enlightenment you want, don't believe a thought you think. Meanwhile, if you're like most people, you're going to believe something, so you might as well adopt beliefs that support you. Rich beliefs, remember. Thoughts lead to actions, feelings which lead to results. You can choose to think and act like rich people do, and therefore create the results that rich people create. Lead. The question is, how do rich people think and act? That's exactly what you'll discover in part 2 of this book. If you want to change your financial life forever, read on. Declaration. Place your hand on your heart and say, my thoughts, and entertain only those that empower me. I observe, touch your head and say, I have a millionaire mind. Success story from Rhonda and Bob Baines. From Rhonda and Bob Baines. 2 T. Harv Eker. Subject, we feel free. We went to the Millionaire Mind Intensive not really knowing what to expect. We were very impressed with the results. Before attending the seminar, we were having a lot of money problems. We never seemed to get ahead. We would continually be in debt and not know why. We would pay off our credit cards, usually from a large bonus at work, only to get back into debt within 6 months. It did not matter how much money we made. We were very frustrated and argued a lot. Then we attended Millionaire Mind. While listening to Harv, my husband and I kept squeezing each other's leg and smiling and looking at each other. We heard so much information that had us saying, no wonder. Oh, so that's why. Everything makes sense now. We were very excited. We learned how he and I think so differently when it comes to money, how he is a spender and how I'm an avoider. What a horrible combination. After hearing the information, stopped blaming each other and started understanding each other and ultimately started to appreciate and love each other more. It is almost a year later and we still do not argue about money. We talk about just what we learned. We are no longer in debt. In fact, we have money in savings. The first time in our 16-year relationship.